What's going on, guys? Today we are going to be talking about SoFi Technologies. We will look at its performance over the last month, as well as how a number of its peers have performed. And finally, we'll take a look at a number of different factors that could occur in 2024 that could lead to SoFi's price shooting up in a major way. So if you enjoyed the video, drop a like down below. And if you want to see more videos like this one, make sure to subscribe. Let's start off by taking a look at SoFi's stock performance. We can see that the stock over the last 5 days is up a little over 1.5%. And over the last month, SoFi is up over 36%. If we look at the last 6 months, it's up almost 20%. We have seen it start to approach some of these highs for the year of around $11.45, where the stock did go above $10. However, it's kind of evened out and is showing actually a lot more stability above this $10 mark than what we saw back in August, where it shot up there for a day or two and then immediately fell back below. And SoFi's 1 month performance far exceeds that of the S&P 500. SPY, which tracks the S&P 500, is up around 4.14% over the last month. And a lot of this outperformance is secular, as many of SoFi's peers have outperformed as well. Here we could see Rocket companies, and they're up 55% over the last month. A company like Rocket focuses a lot on car loans as well as mortgages. We also have companies like UWM Holdings, which solely focuses on mortgages, and they're up around 31% over the last month. Ally Financial has a focus on mortgages as well as banking. They're very comparable to SoFi, but SoFi is still in a growth stage, while Ally has really achieved the growth that they're looking for and has slowed down quite a bit. But we could still see that Ally is up almost 20% over the last month. And for the investment side of SoFi's business, I think a company that could be comparable is Robinhood, and Robinhood is up almost 45% in the last month. The thing to keep in mind with Robinhood is they generally perform well when the rest of the market performs well. If we see stocks going up 20-30% in a single year, oftentimes what you'll see in the following year is investors will be looking closer and closer at the market, and a lot of retail investors, such as those that use Robinhood, will start jumping into the market, and that's really how Robinhood makes their money. So the fact that the stock is up, to me, kind of tells me that a lot of people are anticipating that 2024 will be a good year for stocks and crypto. And even a bank like Wells Fargo, which does have a very high focus on mortgages, is up over 10% in the last month alone. And the biggest thing that all of these businesses have in common is the fact that they can be very dependent on interest rates. And what we have seen over the last year or so has been interest rates increasing in a major way. That means anyone who's gotten a mortgage over the last year or so, anyone who's gotten a car loan, they all have gotten those at very high rates. Now what we are seeing from the Fed is that they are projecting 3 rate cuts in 2024. And what that means is that will offer people an opportunity to refinance their loans potentially on any of these number of sites. And oftentimes we'll see stock prices move up in a major way when we get announcements around news and what they could mean for the future. Investors like stability and they don't like uncertainty. And what we saw recently during a Fed's meeting is them discuss where they are projecting rates to go over the next 3 years. And from this, we can see that in 2024, the Fed is expecting interest rates to drop down to around 4.5% to 5%. In 2025, they're expecting those rates to hit somewhere around 3.5%, and then in 2026, somewhere around 2.5% to 3%. And this chart gives a lot of certainty around where rates are headed in the future. The biggest thing being that there are no dots above our current rate. There are no members of the Fed. They're expecting interest rates to have to continue to increase over the next 3 years. And obviously, no one knows what the future holds, but what we can predict is the Fed's reaction to their goals. Their first and number one goal is to get inflation down to around 2%. And they have done a very good job of this over the last 4 months, dropping inflation from around 3.7% down to around 3.1%. And if we see this trend continue into next year and we see inflation drop down to around 2%, I think that the Fed can execute on their second goal, which is getting interest rates back down to around 2.5%. And the dropping of interest rates would have a huge impact on SoFi's earnings. And this is something that analysts are very aware of, as we're seeing some of them start to upgrade SoFi to a buy. Zacks recently upgraded SoFi to a rank 2 buy, and Zacks ratings rely solely on a company's changing earnings picture. It tracks EPS estimates for the current and following years from the sell-side analysts covering the stock through a consensus measure. And basically what this comes down to is that Zacks thinks that SoFi is going to have a great 2024 in terms of their EPS and the numbers that they actually put up. And investors are expecting SoFi to hit profitability in the fourth quarter. This is really because the company told investors in their last couple of earnings announcements that they are anticipating profitability in the fourth quarter. And what we could see is analysts are kind of on the edge about it. They have an average EPS estimate of 0 cents with a low of -1 cent and a high of +2 cents. And the current year overall hasn't been that great for SoFi. Analysts are expecting that EPS will come in around -38 cents. However, looking forward to 2024, we can see that analysts are expecting a positive year for SoFi with a positive EPS number of 6 cents. They have a low estimate of -5 cents and a high estimate of +16 cents. In my opinion, I think this high estimate of 16 cents is probably optimistic, and that is if the Fed were to drop interest rates more than they're anticipating in 2024. If they were to go down maybe 4 or 5 rate cuts, I think we could start seeing some of this higher EPS estimate in here of around 16 cents. And the reason I think you need to see 4 to 5 rate cuts to start getting closer to that higher EPS number has to do with a general rule around interest rates and how you refinance. Most people are not going to refinance until you get down 1% or more below where your current rate is. And a lot of people have rates around 6 to 6.5%. There are going to be some people that are sitting maybe 7 to 7.5, even 8%. Those people will likely refinance during the next year if we see 3 cuts. However, getting the bulk majority of people to refinance is going to take a 1% move down in interest rates or more. And with a little bit more certainty around interest rates and where they're headed in the future, we have seen analysts start to increase some of their EPS targets. 90 days ago, we saw the average EPS estimate at 3 cents. And over the last 3 months, we have seen that raise all the way up to 6 cents. In my opinion, I think SoFi is going to have a great 2024. If we start seeing interest rates drop earlier in the year, then we could start seeing them hit that higher EPS estimate. However, I think the average is probably a safe amount. I think we won't start seeing rate cuts until the second half of 2024, and that's potentially when we could start seeing people refinance, and maybe the third and fourth quarter could be very positive for SoFi. However, these first couple of quarters, I expect them to hit profitability and probably stay in a very low range of around 1 to maybe 3 cents of positive EPS. But with that, keep in mind, do not buy a company just because some random guy on YouTube talked about it. Make sure you are doing your own research and looking into companies that meet your risk tolerance as well as your time horizon. So with all of that said, I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, drop a like down below. And if you want to see more videos like this one, make sure to hit that sub button. And as always, guys, have a wonderful rest of your day.